The consulate had prepared briefings for us on Asian news, folders containing news clips about all sorts of things affecting U.S. relations with Asian countries, especially China. The biggest news at the time was that a Hong Kong bookseller who sold banned books had mysteriously disappeared. Mostly we slept in the lounge on the couches, though at intervals Justice Scalia, Caroline, and I would all be awake. The staffers from the consulate brought us tea and dim sum dumplings. At one point we did a little work on the second edition of Reading Law. I trotted out a law review article criticizing the decision in FDA v. Brown and Williamson Tobacco Corp., in which the Supreme Court, in an opinion by Justice Sandra Day O'Connor, held that cigarettes aren't drugs and therefore aren't subject to the jurisdiction of the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. Justice Scalia had joined in the opinion. The law review writer argued that because nicotine is a drug, cigarettes should fall within the definition of a drug delivery device, something used to deliver a drug to the human body. I asked Justice Scalia how this could possibly have been in line with his textualist philosophy, given that nicotine is a drug that is delivered by means of cigarette paper. He grew contemplative and asked me to read the relevant passage, which I did. He sighed heavily, as he often did in deep thought, and proclaimed, "Nobody ever thought that provision in the Food and Drug Act gave the FDA the power over such a well-known phenomenon as cigarettes. There are lots of other statutes dealing with cigarettes as such." He also thought that drug was being used contextually in a therapeutic sense, not in the broader sense of substances that have no beneficial effect. We spent probably 15 minutes discussing the case, and he persuaded me that drug must have meant in a therapeutic sense. I mentioned that I hadn't seen him smoking in at least a couple of years. He smiled, putting his headphones on, and said he'd given up even the occasional cigarette. Then he dozed off listening to Mozart. Singapore. When we finally arrived in Singapore on January 26th, we had lost a full day, we were met by a U.S. Embassy representative named Nick, who looked and acted the part of a career diplomat. About 5 feet 10 inches, of medium build, he was conservatively dressed with a short haircut. Tortoiseshell glasses straddled his aquiline nose, and he had rapid, intelligent-sounding speech. He was studiously apolitical but exceedingly well-informed, and he was refreshingly candid about the local political situation. Our local guide and caretaker, meanwhile, was a National University of Singapore representative named Johann, a native Singaporean who had spent a good deal of time in Europe. His job was to organize special events at the university and to handle special visitors. He was earnest, thoughtful, well-organized, and eager to please. He'd be our university escort for the entire stay. Right off the jet bridge, we were taken by bus to a VIP lounge, where we waited for our bags. Nick began briefing us all on U.S. Embassy views on Singapore. When our bags finally arrived, we boarded a bus, and Nick continued briefing us all the way to the Shangri-La Hotel. Upon arriving, we thanked him and said goodbye, with the understanding that we'd see him again upon leaving Singapore, and also upon his return to the States from service overseas. Although Justice Scalia's beautifully outfitted 3-room suite was ready upon arrival at 7:30 a.m., our room wouldn't be ready until 1 p.m. at the earliest. Justice Scalia kindly offered to have us wait in his suite until our room was ready. We demurred, but took our bags there to freshen up. Then the 3 of us went to the hotel restaurant for breakfast. The offerings included not just a buffet, but also an a la carte Singaporean breakfast, an Indian breakfast, and a Japanese bento box. That first morning, Justice Scalia ordered an all-American breakfast with scrambled eggs. Beginning the next day, he branched out with the bento box, featuring grilled fish, pickled vegetables, rolled omelet, dried seaweed, and sticky rice, and didn't again revert to American fare until we reached Hong Kong.